This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
2019, what a year for JJ Meets World. It's our first full year in production. We hit some pretty major milestones. We hit episode 100 in 2019. And now we've passed episode 150. We stopped doing 2 episodes a week and went to 1 episode a week. More on this later. We had Academy Award nominated guest. We had live shows that we taped on location. We did a lot on this podcast in the last year.
We've also moved between recording studios a couple of times.
A couple of times is correct. You know, I think the evolution of this podcast is outside the realm of what I ever thought we could do. I don't know what your opinion is. I think when Tucker and I sat down to talk about doing JJ Meets World, the first thing that we said is podcast fatigue is the number one killer of podcasts. When you tell people you're going to release an episode on Monday, and then you look back and the last episode was in April.
Oh yeah, podcast death. Pod death is, I think, is the phrase I've heard the most because because podcasting has such a low barrier of entry, meaning it's cheap to get into it. Even if you have a smartphone, you've got everything you need to start podcasting now. And so a lot of people want to get into it, which is great, but then most people tend to not have any sort of game plan of what happens the next week and then in the week after that. And so at the very beginning, we endeavored to go, regardless of what happens, we're going to set our production schedule and we're going to release episodes on the days that we say we're going to release episodes, and we're not going to stop.
And with the exception of a couple of hours delay due to internet and the fact that we recorded the episode the night before, we have not missed deadline. And that I will 100% say is because of Tucker. I show up, I talk into this mic, and then I leave. Tucker's the one who has to do all the work on the other side. So Tucker, I appreciate you a lot. Tucker and I also argued quite a bit in this year of JJ Meets World, and there were some things that really have cut me deep. and cut him deep. I think if you want to hear our differences in opinions, you have to listen to our Marvel Saga setup, where we go through all of the movies leading up to Avengers Endgame, and then our Avengers Endgame review.
That's right.
We did not sit on the same side of the table
on all those.
On all those,
for sure. But that's okay. Part of the in the tagline of the show, it's all about the art of conversation,
right?
And differing opinions are going to be a part of that. I think, to our credit, we've never let a debate or an argument derail anything.
Right. Even when the general public jumped on my bandwagon about thinking An American Tail, 5 Goes West is better than An American Tail. But that was a 2018 discussion.
And they all have the right to be wrong. Like that's absolutely their God-given right. So, but what we're going to do today, before we start going through and talking about some of our favorite episodes,
we got some announcements.
And I'm really excited about these.
So let's start with this. I said we went down to 1 episode a week in 2019. 2020, we're going back to 2 episodes a week.
Back to 2.
In a different format.
Yeah.
So I think this is exciting. Tucker and I mean, the conversation that we had about this decision was really based around the idea of, okay, we've got 150 episodes in the can.
Right.
And we look at what you listen to. Like, what are people listening to? What are they gravitating towards? What are the episodes you like? What are the episodes that are maybe throwaway?
Yeah. And we also wanted to get to a point where we knew that we could maintain that sort of episode release. But yeah, it's a little bit different than what we did when we started. So if you've been listening from the beginning, you know that our original schedule was there was a new episode of JJ Meets World every Monday and every Thursday. Slight tweak to that now. Going into 2020, there will be a new episode of JJ Meets World every Monday and then every Friday. So you'll be able to begin and end your week with JJ Meets World. And here's how we've tweaked it further. The Monday episode of JJ Meets World will always be a new guest interview, someone you haven't heard before in the typical JJ Meets World format. The Friday episode will be all sorts of stuff. It might be another guest interview that week, but the times that we've experimented with the show, so the times we've done long-form improv, or we do movie commentary, or we bring a guest back to kind of cover some old ground, you'll be hearing those much more on Fridays. And plus, wherever else we decide to take it, we've been brainstorming some ideas for some new episodes that I'm really excited about. And so Friday will be that day where we really sort of let our hair down, for lack of a better phrase, and just play with it.
Yeah. And, I love consuming all different types of podcasts. So does Tucker. And so we'd like to take our chance at it without throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Right. And we have a lot of plans in the future as we grow. We'd love to be producing other shows too. So tune into Friday episodes. That might be where we start testing out some concepts. You might see, a couple ideas there, or episodes that if popular enough would spawn their own show after the fact. I'm really, really excited about going back to 2 episodes a week.
We're essentially trying to make a Perfect Strangers. Because Perfect Strangers allowed the ability for Family Matters to spin off of it. And so that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to figure out what that piece of the puzzle is going to be. And I'm excited. The Friday episodes that Tucker and I have already started brainstorming are fun.
Yeah.
They're going to be just a blast and a half. And if you have a suggestion for one, if you want to hear Tucker and I do a deep retrospective into the Star Wars literature, like the books that are in the canon, tell us about it. If you want us to say, Tucker and JJ, it's time that we learn more about bugs, we will do our best to educate you about bugs. We're gonna, so please reach out to us. That's, another thing for 2020 is I would like to get to know the ears behind the speakers a little bit better. So if you have ideas, you can go to our Facebook page, send us a message there. You can go to our website and send a message there. And this is the perfect segue into announcement number 2.
Yep. So we have been working behind the scenes for a while now with former guest Mike Rezel, one of my best friends in the world. And that
at the time of recording has the record for the most appearances.
Right. If our Christmas recording went as planned, though, he'll now be tied with Greg Carlson, or Greg Carlson will be tied with him. They'll each have been on 5 different times. But if you go right now to jjmeetsworld.com, you will see a website that is vastly different than the one that we've had from the beginning. Rezel does this professionally. This is his vocation. He is phenomenal at it. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do with the website was we wanted to set up so for a new JJ Meets World listener, they catch one episode and they go, I like that. I want to listen to more, but I don't know where to start. Go to our website, and if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to see a category field where there's a bunch of keywords. And if you click on one of those keywords, say parenting or politics or film, it's going to show right below that, all of our episodes that deal with that theme on some level. So and there's also a search function too. So say you're like, I want to see what episodes they've done about Star Wars. Type in Star Wars and you'll see at least 4 right now that are going to pop up. So there's a lot of things you can get out of our website. And then the website will actually lead you to our third announcement.
We got merch.
Merch shop, baby.
That's right. So our logo designed by Adam Weedman is awesome. And it looks amazing on a t-shirt. We've given away buttons. We've given away stickers. But people have been pushing us saying, listen, I wouldn't mind a JJ Meets World shirt. And I said, that's awesome. Go for it.
Yeah.
So within our website, you will find a banner that you can click on to get to a website that will allow you to create some JJ Meets World merch. What's exciting about this to us is you don't have to contact me and then wait for me to go to the post office and ship you this shirt. This website, we did a lot of research and Tucker found probably the best option for you, the consumer, to get what you want in a timely fashion and the quality. So I recommend you go on there and try it out. At least just look what's offered. Because you might say, dang, a zip-up hoodie with the JJ Meets World logo, that could be a conversation starter at my next work function.
It's also a really great way to help support the podcast.
Right.
So, we do work with sponsorships, but we also have our Patreon page. Thank you, by the way, everyone who's helping donate on Patreon. It's really helping us keep the lights on, literally, to let this thing go. But a merch shop is another good way for you if you want to support us but want to get something extra out of it. Check out the merch shop. We've got clothing. There's all sorts of stuff that our logo is on. And we'll probably start unveiling maybe some new designs in the year or two to flesh that out. And if you even have suggestions of what you'd love to see in the merch shop, let us know and we'll add it.
This is going to sound weird, but this is something I thought would be very cool is if you ordered a shirt with all the dialogue from your favorite episode. So could you imagine, a shirt that says this, and then the rest of the bulk of the shirt is all the text would have to be like 2 point, but it is all the dialogue from that entire episode.
Yeah.
I
love it.
Because Google is making a huge stride into podcasts and making podcasts accessible to people who hearing is an issue.
Yeah.
And the technology has been developed and they're rolling it out where podcasts are going to be put into, what would you say, like a closed captioning almost?
I mean, basically all of the words would be searchable. So it's like search engine optimization, I believe, the way it works. And that I believe Google is ranking podcasts similarly to the way they rank video. So that video and audio content will get further up than just text or other stuff that's in there, and getting all that wording is important to that. I'm really interested to see how accurate those algorithms are going to be, like how well they'll actually be able to transcribe the words that we say. From the beginning, we had always wished we had the ability to do that, but the services you have to contract with are really expensive. It takes a long time for one person to sit at a keyboard and transcribe everything they're hearing. So it's been out of our cost range to add that service. But now, with what you're saying, what Google's doing, hopefully that should help make JJ Meets World more accessible, because that's what we want it to be.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Well, JJ, how do you feel about us going through a couple of our favorite episodes from the year?
I think that's a great idea. I think that there's a good amount of stuff that we did this last year that really needs to have a good little light shined on it. Now, asking you which podcast this last year was your favorite is like saying which baby do you like the most. It's always going to be Todd. Todd's the best of the babies. but you also want to love the other ones as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to go in order or not. I know which one is my Todd, though.
Which is your Todd?
For sure. I'm going to look up the number here real quick so I can tell you all where to go. Well, this one's not my Todd. Well, I look for my Todd. We did an episode called Podcasting 101. It's episode number 85. It's the first time we ever recorded a podcast with a live audience. And that was also an episode where we actually taught how to get into podcasting. It was kind of a big episode for us because we had a lot of people come out of the woodwork that were interested in podcasting that helped learn from us. And a lot of them are working on launching podcasts now.
In fact, I would love to sit down with one of those people and talk about their podcast afterwards. What's unique about this one is we hook up a microphone so people can ask questions to us. So if you've got a question, it's not just like watching a tutorial. There are other people who might have the same idea you have of, oh, how do you do this? And so we include that as part of it. Huge thanks to the Fargo Public Library who hosted us. And then a previous guest is even the one who put this thing together for us. And so it's a very exciting thing to be able to share a passion with other people and to try and ignite that passion. That brings me to one of my favorite episodes, number 127, Neither Fish Nor Fowl, which was an episode where Tucker and I went on the road and went up to Grand Forks, and we interviewed the retiring pastor from my wife's church in Hillsboro, a Methodist church. And Dale Emery is our guest, and Pastor Emery had retired this was his fourth time retiring, and this one was going to stick. And we get into a pretty in-depth conversation about what it means to guide a flock. Mm-hmm. And I think Pastor Dale looked deep inside of himself and said, gosh, I'm proud of some of the things I've done, and I wish I had done some things better. And you can only hope that the next generation flourishes more than you do. So we had a very interesting conversation that is not just all about, it's not pro-religion. It's not pro pushing someone out because they are past their prime.
Yeah.
It is an episode that focuses solely on the career of a man who had spent almost 7 decades serving other people.
It's the only time we've had a faith leader on the show. Mm-hmm. And I'd be interested too to find people in that position with different religious groups as well to get them represented on the show. Episode 105, Always in Motion is the Future, was our episode with Academy Award winner Richard Edlund, whose resume includes the original Star Wars trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ghostbusters, and Die Hard. And we have to give a big thank you to Greg Carlson, who helped arrange that. Richard was in town for the Fargo Film Festival because he's actually from Fargo. He lived here as a kid before he moved out. And that was one of those where if you had told me at the start of this podcast that within a year, within 105 episodes, we would have not just any Academy Award winner, but the guy who worked on Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ghostbusters. That was so crazy to have him in the room talking to us about what it was like having conversations with George Lucas about TIE fighters.
Yep. And even like using his previous military experience in the Navy to influence some of these effects. I was giddy with delight when I was watching the Netflix series, The Movies That Made Us.
Oh.
And they have Dirty Dancing and Home Alone and then Ghostbusters. And Richard Edlund is interviewed in Ghostbusters. And I'm like, hey, man, we beat Netflix to those stories.
Oh, yeah. Now, within a week of his episode came my favorite episode. This is my Todd episode, I guess is what you're saying. If Todd is the one that always gets all the... Episode 107, Cold Climate Critters, with our friend Sally Jacobson. And the reason this is my absolute favorite episode, not only of this year, but of all time with JJ Meets World, was within the intro to the show, we had just started recording, and JJ gets 3 words in, and then his chair breaks underneath him and pins him to the ground. If you've ever been interested in what it sounds like when I laugh for 10 minutes straight, check out episode 107, Cold Climate Critters, because that was unplanned, unscripted, and probably the best way to intro an episode we've ever had.
And if I will also say, moving beyond the fact that my rear end broke a chair, if you enjoy the conversation we have with Sally, which is very zoo focused, just a few episodes later, I think it's just maybe 15 or
I'm looking
20,
it up here. I'll get it to you.
Sheffield at the zoo, we did a live show at the Red River Zoo where we walked around. We used specialized equipment that Tucker hooked us up with, and we were able to actually take a tour of the zoo with the executive director, with the CEO, Sally Jacobson, who told us stories and gave me a deeper appreciation for what they're trying to accomplish as far as conservation, as far as intentionality behind making these animals' lives as happy and as productive as possible.
That's episode number 131. Sheffield at the Zoo came out on July 29th. So one. That is a really fun one. We walk around the zoo.
Here's a behind the scenes story from that episode. So the equipment that Tucker borrowed took like 6D batteries, and luckily Tucker bought a giant container of batteries because every 10 minutes we'd have to stop and swap out these batteries, and the device and the batteries were so hot, they could burn you. They were so hot.
There was something seriously wrong with that that recorder, because we were going through batteries so fast. I'd have to stop JJ and Sally, who'd be in the middle of a really interesting conversation about a camel, and after, guys, we gotta swap out again. That was not fun
for you.
For me,
it was delightful because it was a beautiful day right here in Fargo, North Dakota. Let's switch from Fargo and go east. My Todd episode of this year is episode 139, The Mayor of Moorhead.
Ah, yeah, that's a strong one.
This was easily the most vulnerable I got, and I think I've ever been in an episode of JJ Meets World, because Mayor Jonathan Judd from Moorhead, who we had been trying to get on our podcast for a long time, shared stories from his life that I never knew, and I don't think a lot of people have ever heard.
Right.
And about how he became the man he is today. And this episode paints a picture of a politician that reminds you that it's the experiences in your life that shape who you are, but your choices are the things that ultimately define your character.
Yeah.
Jonathan Judd, not only an amazing mayor for Moorhead, but we also talk about his work in the criminal justice system and the need to take addiction seriously. This episode, I mean, I didn't want this one to end. It was just a phenomenal episode. It was a great chance to get to know someone better. And he gave us a great compliment too. He goes, you guys, your interview is asking me questions that nobody ever has. Like, no one ever asked me this on the campaign trail.
That's one of the nice things about podcasting as a format, in the format that we've bought into, which is long form, unedited, conversational, where you allow people to breathe. If someone is on the campaign trail or doing a TV interview, like on a late night talk show, they've been kind of coached to speak in sound bites, because that's the way that format works. And in this format, you've mentioned it a couple times, JJ, where we'll have a guest come in and you can tell for like the first 10 or 15 minutes they're on, right? There's a version of themselves that they're presenting because it's sort of a public relations-y type thing. But at some point they get comfortable enough where you can tell you're hearing the real person now as they speak. One of the episodes that I really love from this year is episode 119, Fighting Spirit, and that is with legendary pro wrestler Pat Tanaka. Pat has been a veteran of the professional wrestling world for years. His father was a professional wrestler. Pat has relocated to North Dakota with his lady love, and he is now training a new generation of professional wrestlers out of our hometown. And, getting him to come in, it just was so interesting to me. That's a kind of perspective that when you live in a town the size of Fargo, you're going to meet a lot of interesting people, but that's someone with a background you don't anticipate you're going to run into. Just like Richard Edlund, who worked on Star Wars. You never see it coming, and man, it was fun to get him in the studio.
I always have a wonderful time when I meet somebody that is fully educating me on something. My knowledge of professional wrestling begins and ends with the wrestling buddies that you could buy in the 80s. And so for him to be able to give us, an idea of what it was like behind the scenes and, truly the hard work that had to be put in to create these characters. And it really just is fascinating because I get to learn so much about something that I don't know about, which I just think is wonderful. I think that people have a similar situation with other people that nobody ever talks about. Case in point, I have watched a human being die, and Hollywood does not prepare you for what it's really like.
Right.
Here's an example of it. You don't know it's a last breath until it's way past a last breath. No one goes, and then they're gone. Yeah, and then they're gone. I remember watching my mother take a breath, and then a minute and a half goes by, and so you're grieving because she's died, and then all of a sudden, and then she takes another breath, and that went on for almost an hour. There's an episode in the JJ Meets World setup that gives you a 100% real world, this is how an illness changed my life podcast. And that's A Lifetime Supply of Ramen, episode 143 with Shannon Weidman, who is a previous guest, who details her battle with cancer. And even since the episode has ended, things have changed for Adam and Shannon in their life, health-wise. But Shannon gives such an amazing gift to people, which is, I'm going to tell you what I experienced that they're not going to tell you. You're not going to find this in a leaflet that they hand you after a diagnosis. For case in point, we talked about like what hair growth does. So, when someone has cancer, they lose their hair, right? Well, I said, what about leg hair? She even talks about like what happens in her nether regions as far as hair. And it's stuff that unless somebody is willing to share that information directly with you, you're probably not going to find it. And so I find this episode to be incredibly inspiring because Shannon at no point has a pity party.
No.
She says, this is what's happening. This is how we tackled it. She even has an amazing sense of humor about what's going on. This is an episode that I think if you've been touched by cancer in your life or a loved one, this is an episode that'll make you know that you are not the only one out there who's experiencing those things. Very powerful episode. It's a ton of fun, and I love the fact that it is sandwiched between Burning Man episode where Rezel is talking about how he's cougar bait, and then the IT guy at my day job who has a great idea of how to like butcher cattle or a pig. It's about butchering a pig. So I love the fact that that's what JJ Meets World has provided in this last year are everything. Yeah. Like we crossed the whole galaxy.
Another episode that I really love from this year is episode number 135, Puberty and Divorce. Came out on August 26th, and that is with my good buddy, Katie O'Keefe Hale. I met Katie when I used to work in poker television, and she was one of the hosts of the show, and we've been buddies ever since. And not only does she have some really unique insight on when marriages dissolve, because she used to be a divorce mediator for the North Dakota Supreme Court. But she also then unveils the fact that she's been producing a film documentary about the U.S. Women's Olympic hockey team, which I had no idea she was working on. That blew my mind, and she had all these amazing stories about what that documentary was about, the insights from that, and the current battle they're in to get it on some medium for people to watch.
I think I fell in love with Katie in about 2 seconds of her being in the studio. I was like, oh my God, this is my soulmate right here. Because
sorry, Jill.
She just very comfortable. And, of
Yeah.
course, that comes from a lifetime of being in front of a camera. But I mean, just a wonderful person. The type of person that if you're going to be on a flight, like a 10-hour flight, this is who you want to sit next to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just and funny. And she talks about she's like, I'm the cool mom.
Right.
And and giving all the boys nicknames. And I just thought like, oh, I'm jealous of that I am not friends with your son so that I can come over and get a cool nickname from you as well. I also want to throw this out there. In 2019, we started a series of live Dungeons and Dragons episodes.
Yep.
And so
the butter
there's
slide battle.
and then Air D&D, I believe, is the other one, right?
Yep.
They're fun to listen to if you just take the idea of like we're telling a story, right? They're making the cast of characters we have are making decisions. People have talked to me about when's the third one going to come.
Yeah, we
I
need to
know
wrap
what the
it up.
wrap it is.
2020.
2020, we're going to wrap it up. It sounds like a Friday episode.
Sounds
to
like
me.
a Friday episode to me too, and
Good.
which is why I love that we have Friday episodes. We have a goal on this show to do an episode with every member of the Blenders.
Mm-hmm.
1 down, 3 to go. We, on episode number 115, being a Blender, we had Ryan Lance.
Yep.
And Ryan was awesome. If you're not from this part of the country or part of the world, the Blenders are a big deal in our neck of the woods. And
You have maybe heard them in national ad campaigns.
probably.
Or if you have seen Jay Leno perform live, they
Sure.
toured for a long time as an opener for Jay Leno.
It can be. It's always for like an a cappella group. How do I want to put this? You would not guess how funny those guys are. Just how hilarious to hang out with them they are, and that's on display in Ryan's episode. And Ryan's got crazy stories from the road. The different, like when they would get booked into like school union halls and stuff like that. Some really, really awesome stuff.
One of all the Blenders, Ryan is the one who has chosen to be a full-time performer.
Sure.
His
Brat Pack Radio.
Brat Pack Radio. He tells an amazing story of working with Todd Rundgren.
You're right.
That's amazing. And Ryan is just a fun dude, and I'm so glad he was our first. In fact, was it that he had stayed at his mom's house the night before?
Yeah, he
and
came in sweatpants with bed hair.
so that influences, our conversation. And the Blenders have been a part of my life since I believe it was 1989,
Chrissy's birthday?
88, 89, somewhere around there. Because they're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. But one of their first paid gigs was performing at my lake place for my sister's birthday over Labor Day weekend one year. And I have the tape from that. And I still think I should digitize it and we can put it on our Facebook page.
I've got all the gear you need to
Do
make
ya?
it happen. Yep.
There you go. So this is the fourth announcement. We're going to start digitizing VHSs for everybody.
Are we?
as a service. That's a 2021 project. So don't bug us about that until next time. Tucker, like I said, it's hard to decide which of these is your baby, right? Which is your most, the most engaged you've been, the best conversation. I will also say this. It's a big deal to me that people like our good buddy Tristan took a risk on us. We got to do a live show at the Century Theater here in Fargo, where we played Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, and we did a live interactive commentary as part of it while people watched The Clumps, and it was so much fun. And to the, I think, dozen people who turned out for that one, they got to see something special and very unique. I had a real blast doing that. And Tristan's another person who has come up and talked to me about episodes and will send me a message Monday afternoon being like, what do you mean you don't like bread and butter pickles?
Right.
And that's what I've really loved is 2019 was a year where people came up to me and engaged me about the episodes of JJ Meets World they like. And it's because they had their own opinions and they wanted to tell me how they felt about certain things.
Right.
And I loved it. It was great.
There was one episode that I know is close to your heart. episode number 124, Teaching Teenagers, where the guest was someone who's been like a mother to you in your life, Gwen Stark. What was it like for you to have Gwen, to have your history with Gwen sort of recorded forever in podcast format?
You know, it was special to me. I think a lot of her former students felt the same way. So if you think of a former student as just sort of like anybody, I took that approach to the interview to say, like, I just would like this to be a piece of history that any person who took one of Mrs. Stark's classes or was in a play she directed could have this time capsule. It's funny you mentioned that because just last night I was chatting with Mrs. Stark at the 5th annual Don Quixote's alumni show. It's the improv troupe that Gwen talks about, and being there for forming that. And she said, you know what I've loved is being able to sit in the audience and just watch. She goes, I don't have to worry about anything because I get to watch these people who meant so much to me now thriving with those things that we all shared together when we were a class. And I thought that what a beautiful way for an educator to view that. It wasn't, oh, I miss not being able to control this aspect. I don't miss being a part of the camaraderie even backstage. She goes, I just like to know that it's still being, and to see a legacy continue like that is really, really amazing. In 2020, I hope to get Gwen's husband, Steve Stark, Mr. History, onto the show at some point. We've also started to collect families on JJ Meets World. Where we so married couples that we've had both we've had Greg and Katie
Carls. Shannon and Adam.
The Symes.
Yes, that's right. Yep. The Wintersteins. Although, David. That's right. David was on. We have David's coming up here in a new episode in the new year. But where he's got a solo episode.
Now the problem is that there are some of these people who have children, and we haven't collected the children as well. So
I like how you're putting it that way.
Collecting.
Like, it's time to collect the children.
I would like. at one point, I'd love it if there were enough episodes where we have the entire family. Right, as part of it.
But also just getting the perspective of a kid. We're only talking to adults on this show, and that's not because we don't like kids, but how often do you get the chance to have a conversation like that with someone who isn't an adult yet? So we should do that sometime in 2020.
Yeah, I am really good at interviewing kids, and I'll tell you why. I hate to shop. I hate shopping. It drives me crazy. But my mother was a great shopper, where like if we needed to get new bedroom furniture, she would go and she'd figure it out and she'd bring tape and she'd measure everything. Well, that sounds like the most boring afternoon ever to me. So I would just go and find like the kids area where there's some Legos, a juice box, maybe they're playing a claymation special.
Right.
And so I'd sit there. And so even into my late 20s, I still did this exact same thing. When my wife takes me to the mall, I go, ugh.
I'm going to play with Play-Doh.
Yep. And so I speak with kids, and I think the key to interviewing a kid is, treat them like they're like, and what day do you like to go to the potty?
Yeah, they're not stupid. They're kids.
Right, exactly. You just need to engage them on what it is. And you need to, when you ask a kid a question, you need to want to know the answer.
Right.
So if I ask you a question where I already know the answer and I don't really care what it is, the kid knows that. The kid can sense it. But if I really want a kid to teach me about Pokemon, that's great. By the way, this is a trick that I love. My dad would mispronounce Super Mario Brothers as Super Mario Brothers, and he knew it just got under my skin. And now I do the same thing to kids by saying Pokemans.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, are you playing Pokemans? And someone was like, what's your favorite Pokemon? And I said, the trainer.
Yeah.
They're like, that's not Pokemon.
For sure. If you want to engage the attention of a kid, give them an opportunity to correct you.
Yeah.
Right? To say something that is obviously incorrect, and they will love the chance to come in and correct you about it. JJ, we've been talking a lot about the episodes that matter to us, but let's talk about us for a second.
Milestones?
How was your personal 2019? What happened to you this year?
2019 was a good year for me, but I don't feel it was an accomplished year for me. I got married at the end of 2018. I did the Santaland Diaries. So from October through the new year of 2018 was so big that I needed to take the beginning of 2019 off. And that felt good. It felt good to just kind of concentrate on what's going on. I had made myself a lot of promises that I was going to finish this home project in 2019 and I'm going to get this going and I'm going to do this. And I haven't done any of those things. And so I'm sort of in this doldrum of I didn't accomplish what I needed to accomplish. And now I have amassed so many things that I need to get done in my life that weekends are met with, rather than rest and relaxation, with me trying to get these things done. And it's a horrible position that I put myself in a lot, where I say, I need to get through Friday and then I'll be fine. I need to get through this day and then I'll be fine. So if I'm living and working for this one particular date, there's always going to be the next thing that I need to get through. And that has been something that I've been plagued with it in 2019. I'll even say this. There were some days when I came to record JJ Meets World that my mentality on my way here is I just need to get through these 3 interviews and then I can finish working in the bathroom and then I can finish getting this painted and stuff like that. I will say, though, that every single time, and I kid you not, every single interview that I have had the opportunity to do in 2019, I have just been over the moon. Like, I can come in here on low energy and be tired and leave with just a phenomenal new perspective on the way someone is leading their life or a project that I want to follow and see where it ends up. I'm very lucky in that retrospective. It's been a hard year because as a nation, we become more and more divided all the time. And I see that creeping into established relationships of people I love. Not necessarily with me and them.
Do you mean political differences?
Political differences.
Really?
Ideology is something else. So, for example, the idea of global warming, I don't think is necessarily a political issue. I think it's do you believe it or do you not believe it? And something as simple as that, I see these fractures taking place with people. And I am very glad to know that our show has the ability to open conversation.
Yeah.
We are not telling you this. We're not talking at you. We are inviting you to take part in this conversation. If you've ever had the chance to eavesdrop on somebody, and when I was on vacation, I had some amazing times where I just got to listen to people talk, and I loved it. That is what I feel like our show represents, right? You're able to kind of put the horn up to your ear and hear something going on from a distance away. And I love that because I do worry that people are choosing to be this and not that. I want to go here and not there. And we need to fix that. I don't know how.
It kind of sucks that we're now going into another election year.
Correct.
Because every 4 years we as a country have a crappy year. And it's always an election year. And this one is going to be as nasty, if not more nasty than 2016. It's guaranteed. So that, at the very least, maybe in podcasting, we can facilitate some conversations that deal with those topics, but at the same time, we can also be an escape from some of that, where you can expect some level of civility, at least on our show, which is nice.
Even things as simple as like the movie Captain Marvel become giant arguments for people.
Right.
And it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I just want to walk away from it.
I did not have as great a time as I thought I was going to have at the cinema this year. I didn't get into movies the way I have before. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. I don't know if it's because it's getting so costly to go to movies, but there was never a week that went by where I didn't go to at least one movie or 2, 3, 4. And this year I missed a lot of stuff that came through theaters that I just didn't get out there to see. And I think partially it's because I have pounded myself with so many projects and things that I haven't finished that I feel guilty about taking 2 hours to escape and just have, some me time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, here's my hope. I took off a significant amount of time after the holidays so that I can concentrate on entering 2020 without major projects. And it's mainly home projects that I need to take care of. I also decided, forget this business. It's time to start hiring people. I spent 2 weekends breaking my back tiling a bathroom floor, and it doesn't even look that good. And I thought, by the time I rented the tile saw, by the time I used half of this thing of mortar, I could have just hired a professional to come do it. And then they have to clean up after themselves. So that is my one thing I would love to stress to people, that when you enter 2020, remember that there is a professional for anything in the world. And if you want to build a deck, that's great. If you want a new deck and you think, I'm going to save myself some money by building it on my own, realize that your time is the largest expense when it comes to that. Because if it takes you an entire summer of Saturdays and favors to friends to get this deck built, it's not just the money for the wood and the nails, it's also your time that you're giving up. And some people have great building experiences. Putting a shed in their backyard is like an Amish barn raising. They have a barbecue that's a part of it, and everyone has their pieces. But we are so convinced that we can do it ourselves because Home and Garden TV can build a garage in 30 minutes. It is not like that.
No.
So think about what your time's worth this year, and think about when you're spending it. It's not only on yourself; it's those that you care about around you. And I think that's important. Also, if you need to know whether or not stuffing belongs in a burrito, Tucker has that answer for you. That was a 2019 accomplishment for you.
Oh yeah, that must have probably the high watermark of what I accomplished in 2019 for sure.
What about your 2019?
2019 was rough. It was a tough year, and it might have been my toughest year. Now that I think about it, I think it was some extreme highs and some very extreme lows. But I survived it. And things are going great right now. 2019, God, what all did I do? I switched careers, which is incredibly stressful. I was working at Discovery Benefits as a video guy for some of their in-house stuff. And now I'm working for a company called H2M, which is a marketing agency, as their media producer, which is both a leadership position in my particular field, but also I get a lot of different types of projects that are interesting. I have phenomenal coworkers. So that's been a really positive change. I moved from my mom's house to my own apartment because she was living on the East Coast. So I was living in her house and paying her rent while she was out there working. And when she came back, I went and got my own apartment again, which moving is incredibly stressful but rewarding. I had a relationship status change, so I'm single and mingling it again, right? Which is actually pretty nice at the holidays because it's just one less stressor to think about during the holidays. I accomplished a dream of mine for a long time where I got to play Hamlet on stage with my theater company, Theater B. When it comes to theatrical productions that I've done, that was the toughest thing I've ever done, but one of the most rewarding. Once that was finished, the biggest thing from 2019 though is the birth of my nephew Dane, who is the love of my life and just the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. I've talked about him before once on the podcast where I talked about the disease he has. He has a genetic disorder with the acronym MMIHS, which means that his digestive system doesn't work, in short, and he has prune belly as well. He has no abdominal muscles. So that has been incredibly painful for my family, especially for my sister and my brother-in-law. But at the same time, Dane is doing fantastic right now. He actually, at the time of this recording, he and my sister and my brother-in-law will be driving into town any minute now. So once we're done recording here, I'm going to go hang out with that baby boy for a bit. Besides the MMIHS, he's incredibly healthy. If you didn't see the tube coming out of him, you'd be like, oh, this looks like a perfectly normal baby. he's vocalizing, he's looking and smiling and kicking his legs, and he's doing good. But needless to say, my sister and my brother-in-law are my heroes, and they are such amazing parents to Dane, and they're doing such a great job. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing him grow in the coming years. But that has definitely been a huge test for our family. But you stick together and you get through it to the next day. And luckily, he's been surrounded not just with love, but with really amazing medical professionals who have been able to ensure a good quality of life for him. And we'll see what the future brings. We'll be talking more about it on this show, I'm sure.
When I think of Dane and I think of you as his uncle, how quickly your life changed with amount of information that you carry, because you had never heard of this
right
before.
It's ultra rare. It's like 1 in a million kids can get it.
And you've become, in a weird way, you've become an advocate for understanding what this is.
Sure.
And I think you've also had to deal with the fact that it's tough to explain this, because it's not like saying, I understand what the word cancer means.
Right.
And so understanding with that. And so I've watched you go through that, and I've watched a lot of growth with you in this last year.
Thank you.
In the positive, and I'm so excited about your new job.
Yeah.
You got a new car.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And that was such a kick to the nuts, because so I had just finished Hamlet. Like, we had just done our last performance that day, and then we struck the set. It was a Sunday, so we done a matinee, spent a couple hours striking the set. Then the cast, we all went out for beers and burgers afterwards. And I'm finally just relaxing. I'm finally like, oh, now I can really, truly enjoy the rest of my year. And I drive home, which is like a 20-minute drive via interstate. That goes fine. I'm pulling into my parking lot and my car dies. And immediately I'm like, I have a feeling this is the transmission. What's going on? And sure enough, the next day I get it towed. And I get a call from the car company, like, we've got some really bad news for you. Yep, it's the transmission. Replacing it's going to be probably $2,700, and that's an estimate before we really go in and do it. That was a car that was worth $3,000. I had just paid it off the month prior. I was in my first month without a car payment. I had just replaced all the tires to the tune of $350. And then that happened. So I ended up selling the junky car for the price of the tires. Basically sold a guy some new tires and threw a car body in with it. And then went and emptied out my savings account so I could get a new car and not have a car payment. But new car is awesome. It's working great. Building that savings back up again. I totally forgot about that.
And just if you're a Patreon giver, just so you know, not a dime
None of it goes to
Tucker's
that.
car at all.
Everything that this podcast brings in so far has gone back into the podcast. And it's going to be like that for a while, because
Which is very cool.
We want to build this. Like, JJ and I's dream is to do this full time.
Right, because I'm not going to end up getting that male modeling gig that I thought.
Well, you never know.
Well,
Opinions on body types are changing, JJ.
Well, that's the thing, is I even sent my stuff into Henry's Huskies, which is which I thought was a strip club, but it turns out it's not. It's actually a male. It's a male modeling agency for men of bigger bones.
What would you like to see us do in 2020, JJ? What's an episode you'd like to see us accomplish?
So one of the things I would like to do is I'd like to take our show on the road.
Yeah.
I've talked about this for a while. We have opportunities in Las Vegas. We have opportunities in Minneapolis. I could hook us up with opportunities in Chicago.
Right on.
I would love to see us take the show on the road. I think our key listeners are in the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo area, because the people we're talking to live here, work here, play here.
Yep.
I think that expanding JJ Meets World is going to take us to places where we can't reference the West Acres Mall.
Right.
Where we have to, and not that there's anything wrong with that at all. I think we are actually serving a population that everyone else in the world thinks of as outdoor toilets and a wood chipper.
Right.
They're
half right.
They're half right. Yeah, they're close. But some of those conversations I think that we could take out there would be interesting. I'm also interested in doing an episode with somebody that you and I do not know. Like essentially walking down the street and being, excuse me, would you be interested in being on a podcast, and building it up from there and just seeing what happens. 2020 is the year that we're going to experiment.
Oh yeah.
And I'm excited with that.
Yeah.
2020 is also the year that 2 podcasts are going to end up getting launched. And this is my promise to the people out there. One is Men Among Kings, which is a podcast where previous guest Phil Goodell and I break down Stephen King's movie adaptations, which thank God they're churning out 10 of them a year, because we'll just have episodes forever. And another is the Linebenders Improv Comedy Troupe. We've been recording improv. So sketches where we're sitting there and just improvising. You've heard 2 of those so far on JJ Meets World. That was the inspiration. And so those will get launched this next year. And that's, again, their projects and their work, but it feeds the soul. It's creative and fun. I worry that there are people out there that don't do something for themselves. And creativity doesn't mean that you have to sit in front of a canvas and paint.
Right.
It can be anything. Creativity can be the way you organize a garage.
I think it was John Cleese who I heard say this once in a video presentation he did. I'm probably paraphrasing here, but that at its base, what creativity is finding a relationship between 2 things where before there seemed to be no relationship, which basically means like problem solving. Problem solving uses the same creative power that painting a picture creates. And so you're right. There's this assumption that creativity means the arts. Certainly the arts is solely creatively focused. It comes from that place, but creativity happens everywhere. It happens in sports. It happens in science. It happens in business. It happens in parenting. And so I hope that through our show, we're able to kind of showcase the various methods of creativity that people have. I also hope in 2020, there's one episode that we've talked about doing, and it just hasn't worked out logistically. I really want to do an episode with our little sisters.
Yes.
JJ and I each have a little sister who is both of our his sister is 2 years younger than him. My sister is 2 years younger than me. So, and we have somewhat similar relationships. And but also just getting Chrissy and Brianna in a room, I think would be hilarious.
It'd be fun.
It'd be a lot of fun.
I don't think they've ever met.
They've never met. And Brianna lives in Arkansas, but she'll be spending more time up here, I'm sure too. So hopefully we'll be able to get them together in a room when they're both here.
I also want to take me outside of my comfort zone, and the easiest way for me to do that would be to do a clothing optional episode and figure out what guests want to come in where we can do like recorded completely in the nude. Because there's nothing that makes you more raw than shedding the 5 layers that you have protecting yourself from the outside world.
We've talked about doing that pancake episode where we put wireless mics on and we go to different restaurants and order pancakes and review them as we're eating them there. I would be down for that. Sounds like a Friday episode.
Yeah, it does sound like a Friday. That's the thing is, if we ever say something that's weird or we are like, this might not work or it's only interesting to 5 people, Friday episode.
Friday episode.
Easy.
That sounds like a Friday to me.
Well, it's time to wrap this thing up just the same way that 2019 is wrapping up. And here's a personal suggestion to you. You can go online and search Rudolph's Shiny New Year. It's a stop motion animated film from the people who brought you Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but it's about Rudolph having to find the new baby New Year who is born with giant ears, but an evil bird named Eon has kidnapped the baby New Year. And if the baby New Year doesn't take his place as the new Year, then time stops permanently. It is horrible. The songs are too catchy to believe, and it also bastardizes history, but it's a great way to ring in the new year.
You're telling me that this stop motion animation about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is not historically accurate?
No, it's not. And like
scandalous.
They set up time, like the idea of time is that every baby New Year, when when they age up to the point and their year is over, they retire to their own island. So it's very Scientology like feeling.
Yeah.
But so that year it's on that island, it's populated by people and it's always that year. So there's like 1776 is Ben Franklin. And then there's a caveman.
Got it.
And then there's a knight. And so they are the representatives of their year. And if 2019 were an island in this special, it'd be pretty much just chicken sandwiches, Disney Plus, and people fighting on social media. That's what would be the 2019 Island.
Okay. All right. If we can real quick, I just want to mention again, jjmeetsworld.com, which was designed by our good friend Mike Rezel. He is available to be hired for web design. Yeah, he does it freelance all the time. If you want to reach out to Rezel, best way to do it is via email, rezelx@gmail.com, RESSLX@gmail.com. And we should just at this moment thank him. I think we should thank Adam Weedman and Noel Scotch Anderson for they're the three people that provided us with our logo, our theme song, and now our killer website. These guys have really helped us get to where we need to go, and we wouldn't have been able to do without you. So check out jjmeetsworld.com and hit up our merch shop to support us that way, and also patreon.com/jjmeetsworld.
And thank you, too. Thank you, listener.
Thank you, listener, seriously.
If this is the first episode you're listening to JJ Meets World, you picked a real weird one to start on, but please remember, we got a back catalog that's a lot of fun. And going forward, in this next year, we'll hit our 200th episode.
Yep.
Will we hit 250 this year, too?
Oh, yeah. If we're doing twice a week, we're going to hit that. There are other ways, though, that you, the listener, can help support us, that helps us stick around and keep doing this. Word of mouth is huge for this show, but also if you would like to support JJ Meets World, but right now it doesn't work financially for you to do a Patreon donation or to buy some merch, go to Apple Podcasts and write a review. Give us a star rating. Hopefully it's 5 stars, but we're not going to tell you what to rate it. But if you can give us
give us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars. That'd be great. If you can give us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, that is where most podcasts are discovered. We are downloaded on Apple devices through the Apple media more than any other thing. It's like 80%. And that's basically how all podcasts are. It's
80%.
It's mostly through that. So if you want to help us out, we would really appreciate it. Go give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts and write a review and tell your friends, because our audience is growing and we want to grow it more so that we can not only be able to focus on this full time, but keep making this kind of content. Who knows? Maybe in the future we'll be able to do a Joe Rogan and do like 4 or 5 times a week.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be great.
I'm trying to see what our reviews are on Apple, but it won't let me. It just keeps me wanting to listen to the same episode over again.
And of course, the bigger we get, we're able to upgrade our production. Like, we would love one day to have video cameras, and for people to not only be able to hear these conversations, but actually see these conversations.
If we could raise $25,000 in the next year through Patreon, which isn't impossible,
Nope.
we could buy the camera equipment we need and launch on that all nude episode.
Yeah.
Because if you want to make a splash,
Yeah.
you might as well
All naked all the time.
all get into a cannonball shape and just go right into the pool. Okay, let's wrap it up. It's time to get going. Welcome 2020. I can see clearly now because it's 2020. That joke's not going to get old for me. And 2019, you can just go suck it.
Get out of here, 2019. We're done with you.
I'm done. Do you think any other celebrities are going to die before the end of the year?
We'll have to check in with the RIP list, folks. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Well, that's another great episode you can listen to.
That's true.
Listen to the RIP list episode.
All right, let's go get drunk.
Yay! A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today, because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year, on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomorehead.com. livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ.